All right, we ended yesterday's show talking about Eagles culture and what it means and why is it so good. So we're going to talk. We're going to pick that conversation up today. We're going to dive into the youth of this Eagles team with my guest today because this guy knows more about the youngins and what they did in college than any of us. So trending in the AM on Philadelphia Sports Network. It starts in 30 seconds. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, X, not Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days. Make sure you like the show, share it out, subscribe, turn notifications on. You know the drill. Tell everybody, tell a friend, Trending in the AM, the number one morning show in Philadelphia, where your opinions actually matter. And we do have a special guest today joining me, my man, Mr. Crockpot himself, DEIBS. How you doing this morning?
Happy Thursday, bro. Thanks for having me on. Man, what an exciting time to be talking about prospects for Philadelphia sports, mainly the Philadelphia Eagles, because they are loaded top to bottom. They even have 3 picks, I think, in the top 2 rounds in next year's draft that I've covered extensively. So they're loaded. They're ready to go. The championship window is fully open. We have a lot to talk about.
We got so much. You know, it's funny that the topic and mad chatter. Everybody wants to know because everybody knows how much on this show that I hate the Kelly Green, that I think it's overrated. But the mad chatter needs to ask every guest this week what they think of the Kelly Green. Am I nuts for having a distaste for the Kelly Green? Although, don't tell anybody. I was on DH Gate yesterday looking up some Kelly Green knockoffs yesterday, but don't tell anybody about that.
Yeah, that's a wild take. I will say it's the sexiest uniform in Philadelphia sports. I will add, though, I get where you're coming from because I've been wearing Kelly Green my whole life. I'm in my upper 30s. So, like, I've been wearing my Randall Cunningham jersey is a Kelly Green jersey that is beautiful. That's literally all I wear. So, like,
the problem is that, like, people got up at 4 a.m., waited in lines to pay $170. They could have just ordered them online. You could have gotten them 2 years ago on a knockoff site. Like, people can't pay their mortgage. People can't, put food on the table, but they can stand. There's the one dude skipping his MRI on his shoulder just to be the first. Come on. I think that's taking it a little too far.
It's not anything we haven't seen before. But it is exciting. It is exciting to see, what is it, Buffalo and Miami, right? Like that. Those games are going to off the chain, man. I'm excited that they're bringing it back, but I get where you're coming from.
A little too much. Anyway, so the topic yesterday is because you study a lot of the draft. Now you're even with Bleeding Green Nation now. I mean, you're literally doing everything for everybody. Don't forget about us little people, please. We talk about the Eagles culture yesterday because of the conversation that came up with Hassan Reddick the other day, asked about his contract. And obviously, severely underpaid. But if this situation was happening in Dallas or Green Bay or any other city across the NFL, it's a bigger deal. Hassan Reddick is handling it like a man, like a professional. He knows it's a business. He knows he's going to get paid, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not becoming a big deal. And he sees the writing on the wall. We go out and draft Nolan Smith with pick 30 in the draft, and you see that maybe I'll get paid, but if not, I'll get paid somewhere else. The culture is bigger, the team is bigger than my problem or my contract. And I think it speaks wonders of how far this organization has come, where no one player is more important. And there are literally starting Pro Bowl level players in a backup position, multiple spots on this team. And you don't see any of the vets complaining whatsoever.
It's amazing, right? Like it starts at the top, right? I mean, it's such a contrast to everything we have seen when it comes to especially the Philadelphia 76ers and things like that. Because we've been complaining about that for months, years. I mean, talk about lack of accountability. But when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, like it's the exact opposite. It starts at the top. You got Nick Sirianni, you saw it, you heard it, day one of Eagles training camp. The guy is screaming his face off at players, sending a message to everyone on day freaking one of Eagles training camp, what the expectations are. And he expects everyone to be well conditioned. He expects everyone to be together and fighting for each other. Like, there is a true connection starting at the top between Nick Sirianni and that emotional connectivity that he has with every single player that walks into NovaCare, that plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, that puts an Eagles uniform on their back. And it's amazing how it trickles down to everyone else, most notably the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. I mean, the way he has stepped up last year is a big there is a big connective tissue to Nick Sirianni, putting him in the position to succeed. The RPO offense and everything, how they have worked together seamlessly, and those intangibles that Jalen Hurts has, that dedication, the commitment for excellence, to win everything, top to bottom. The players just trust the head coach. I think they trust Howie Roseman and his ability to put them in, and Nick Sirianni, to put them in position to succeed, and they'll get their opportunity to succeed here in Philadelphia. You look at, again, contrasting with the Sixers, like we learned, I think, throughout the process, nobody gives a damn about Philadelphia. No star is coming to Philly. Nobody wants to play in Philly. But for Nick Sirianni's Eagles, for Howie Roseman's Eagles, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, I mean, you see, Rocky earlier there brought up, Diggs and Prescott get into it. You got the Zach Martin holdout. I think he's still holding out in Dallas. I mean, that kind of stuff, just, it seems like decades ago the last time we've had to deal with it. I know we've had some drama in the last 5 years here in Philly, but it seems like ages ago, because they've built a culture around Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, Jalen Hurts, that I know that there's been conversation on this show with some of the commenters about how law of averages, we've gone drama-free. Eventually it's going to happen. But I think there's an argument to be made that this current incarnation of the Eagles, the drama won't happen, that there's a chance that nothing is going to go wrong in that sense, because everybody realizes you're playing for the Eagle on your jersey. You're not playing for the name on the back of the jersey. There's a difference there. And I think this team, this group, is on that same page no matter what happens.
I think it also echoes through where these players came from. I mean, look, it's no secret the Eagles are pulling guys through major programs like Alabama, like the George Dogs, the Kirby Smarts, the Nick Sabans. These guys, like, look at Devontae. Like, these guys are all business, zero nonsense. They are there. They are team players, that dog mentality. They are there for each other. It's been truly incredible to see how far this organization has come. I mean, Chip Kelly was not that long ago, and that the team was completely falling apart. Howie Roseman was living in a closet. Like, it's pretty crazy to me. But for me, it starts at the top. Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, and just bleeds green through Jalen Hurts. Everything they stand for, man.
And the Jalen Hurts, like I've said this, and I don't have a record prediction. I won't do that before week one starts and stuff like that. But we all have seen the schedule. We know that there's a tough schedule. You've got that stretch from week 9 or 10 through. You got San Francisco, Buffalo, you got all the time. We know it. But I kind of feel like the culture that is being set, that was set last year, that was set in 2021, and is being set in camp this year, that I don't care how tough the schedule gets, this team isn't losing more than 2 games in a row at any point, because the team motto, the way the team is managed, the way Jalen Hurts just leads by example, they won't let there be more than a 2-week letdown. Right. Is that crazy, or just does that make sense how I'm phrasing that?
I think we saw it last year. There were moments last year, and we talked about it a lot, where previous Eagles regimes, maybe would have fallen, whereas last year's squad, they came out, and took care of business. I mean, look at their stats, and the stats speak for themselves. Look at their second quarter stats. the way they were able to come out, send a message in the first halves of games every single week. I mean, their numbers are crazy offensively. And that's that Nick Sirianni message that we're all about business. Start strong, finish strong. And, that was a really cool thing. We'll see if that carries over. Obviously, you said it that week. I think it's like weeks 12 through like 15, 16 are
really brutal stretch. But
really nuts.
How brutal that stretch is. The Eagles aren't just a good team football, X's and O's on the field. They're a great led team that just won't let, mistakes happen that bad 3-4 weeks in a row. Like there are people predicting we might lose 5 games in a row. It's just not going to happen with this team, with the mentality of this team.
And
go ahead.
Jalen Hurts, man. That's that dog mentality. Jalen Hurts has that. I wish Joel Embiid and James Harden had 25% of what's in there for Jalen Hurts, because let's be honest. I mean, everything we've seen this far, they're soft. And Jalen Hurts has shown it again and again. This Eagles team showed it in 2022 that there were times when things could kind of crumble, and they didn't. They responded again and again and again, and it speaks volumes to the culture on and off the field.
We'll get back to Nick Sirianni in 1 second, but I wanted to bring this up. Obviously, the new thing is the lock screen of Jalen Hurts coming out. And I know everybody's talked about it and, spread it all around social media. I love Jalen Hurts' response. Was it Peter King that asked him about it? And Jalen's response to the lock screen picture was, I wish you didn't even know about that. And that just goes to show it's not even about Jalen Hurts. He just signed the $250 million. It's not about him. It's about the Eagle, and it's about Philadelphia, and that's it. And I think that just shows, I mean, could you imagine Jalen Hurts, his maturity and leadership on the Sixers or the Phillies right now? I mean, we always say, can Howie Roseman run all our other teams? Well, what about Jalen Hurts leading all our other teams? I mean, he just knows the right thing to say it every single time.
Yeah, he's a grown man. There's no question.
At his age, I was so far from being
right there with you, man.
Grown up.
Yeah, I was doing kamikaze shots at the bar.
I was a Jaeger bomb guy at the bar personally. I needed the Red Bull to keep me going.
Yeah.
Saying Eagles are drafting a lot of guys who have a chip on their shoulder. Hurts, Smith, Carter, Dean, Nolan, all underrated in the draft. And this is why we've got this guy here sitting next to me, because he knows these guys. And this whole Eagles culture came from the Reddick with Nolan Smith looking over his shoulder. And Nolan Smith is one of the big guys that's coming out of camp. He's having a great camp so far. Once we see him in game action, it'll be a totally different subject and all. But Reddick knows that guy Nolan Smith is just as good as he is already, probably not as experienced, but just as good. I mean, I still at this point, Beebs, I'm still not, I still haven't come to grips with how we were able to draft him at the end of I saw people projecting him in the top 10 to the Eagles, and we got him at 30. What are your thoughts on what you've seen, heard, and read about Nolan Smith so far?
I think maybe I was a little too low, to be honest. Listen, Nolan Smith, I thought they were going to get him at 10. That was a very safe bet at the time of the draft. But I'm excited about Nolan Smith. I'm a little curious about how his run defense translates. His numbers at Georgia were outstanding against the run. We'll see how that translates to the NFL. There it is. I like that. But for me, I mean, his athleticism has popped all throughout training camp so far. I mean, how this new defensive coordinator utilizes these chess pieces in Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith, elite athleticism, elite pass rushers, putting them all across the football field. It's going to be really interesting. I really want to see this guy get creative and utilize him. I'm still a little skeptical about how much Nolan Smith actually plays in 2023.
And that's what I was going to ask you. How does he fit in? Where does he fit? I mean, it's hard for a rookie to get in there, to begin with,
I expect the Jordan Davis treatment. You know what I mean? It's going to be obviously dependent upon matchups, but we'll see. I mean, you look at the Eagles running back situation. I think maybe we'll see even more of a rotation at defensive line that we've seen in years past. because I think the Eagles are going to be rotating those running backs. We can get into that if you want.
I mean, it's a very hot topic or fun topic to discuss, but I just look at Nolan Smith. You got Hassan Reddick, you got Josh Sweat on the other side, Derek Barnett. They restructured him, so he's probably going to be around. Brandon Graham. How did I forget his name? I like there's 5 guys for 2 basic spots, and there's only so many snaps to go around.
Yeah,
and I'm starting to think that I projected on your show, 16 or 17, whatever sacks for Reddick. There might not be enough opportunities for him because if Nolan Smith continues to play his way on the field, his snaps are going to come from somebody else. So it's going to be really tough to figure out, but it's going to be exciting because those first few weeks we've got the weaker opponents, and you can kind of play around with the rotation. So by week 10, 12, whenever, that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, how they take advantage of his athletic profile will be really fun to watch. I don't know how they get away with putting them both on the football field in Reddick and Nolan Smith, because you got to think if they do that, then one of them drops into coverage, and you don't necessarily want that. It's going to be interesting how they incorporate the stunts and the exotic blitzes and things like that. But having a weapon like that, just to grow under Hassan Reddick, I mean, that's the secret, right? That's the secret sauce of Howie Roseman and the culture, right? He's always got his head 2-3 years down the road. Maybe we'll talk about Keely Ringo in a little bit. But guys that are being groomed, I mean, look at Cam Jurgens, kind of playing out of position, but heir apparent to center in a year or two. I guarantee you that right tackle position will be filled in next year's draft. Absolutely. And he might not play. Maybe Lane comes back one more year, but that is the mentality of this Eagles team, and that's how you build sustained success in the NFL, to have guys that are being groomed and put in positions to succeed and put in roles that are relatively cheap. Building through the draft, man, it's really exciting that all these guys are like 22 years old, and who doesn't love watching a young defense as a Philly sports fan grow and dominate together? It's going to be awesome.
I mean, we spend all this time talking. We're 15 minutes in the show, and all we've done is talk about Nolan Smith and Hassan Reddick, but you still got Jalen Carter, and you still got sort of Jordan Davis. I almost kind of feel like Jordan Davis is still sort of a rookie still this year because of the lack of playing time. So hold on. We got a question on Nolan Smith because we still want to talk Nolan Smith. Decide putting Nolan in a linebacker role to cover the perimeter because of his speed. What are your thoughts on that from Marshawn right there?
Yeah, that's definitely the plan. And I mean, it's so interesting. Like, we'll see. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of evidence with what to expect from this new look Eagles defense and the scheme that we're going to be looking at. But I definitely see Nolan Smith being special in a specialized pass rusher role.
Because you can't take Reddick off the field much anyway, because I mean Reddick is one of the 3 best edge rushers in football, without a shadow of a doubt. The mention of Sean Desai, we'll get back to the players in a second, I think is an interesting one because a lot of people don't know what Sean Desai is. I mean, he had that 1 year in Chicago where he was a defensive coordinator, but that team was a train wreck from all the way up to the top to the last ball boy on the sideline. I mean, that wasn't Nagy's last season. I mean, it was a bad year in Chicago. So whatever we learned from him in that year, I almost feel like you could throw out the window because that's not who Sean Desai really is. Do you think it's a fair assessment of him?
Not really. I love everything he's saying. He's obviously got a lot of confidence in those press conferences. Like they want to play a physical brand of football, the exotic stunt packages, put 2 edge rushers next to each other. Those are things, that get really exciting, especially with how many weapons the Eagles have across that defensive line. So we'll see. It's my fear is putting Hassan Reddick in a position that might not be best. I want that guy attacking the quarterback every down as much as possible. This guy is as lead as it gets, and Howie Roseman should pay him because that's how dominant he is. He's right there, top 5, easy.
Top 3. I'm telling you, he's top 3 in my opinion. He does not get the respect. I mean, where was he on that top 100 list? Not at, it's so disrespectful. The lack of respect that Hassan Reddick is getting. I mean, not just last year, over the last 3 or 4 years as a pass rusher. I think he's right up there with every single elite guy.
There was a stretch of football at the end of last season where he was literally unblockable. Literally, like no one could stop him. And he was a big reason for that Eagles late season push. But yeah, I wish I had an answer for what we're going to see out of Nolan Smith. I do think he's going to probably not be utilized as much as we hope. But everything we are hearing about training camp, I'm not surprised that Nolan Smith, one of the most athletic freaks of all time that we saw at the combine, you saw the numbers, is looking athletic at the combine without pads. It is what it is. But we'll see during the preseason. He's definitely one of the few guys that I'll be heavily watching throughout the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like just even on defense alone, the preseason, you don't see the stars. You're not going to see Hassan Reddick play probably at all in the preseason, or Brandon Graham, or but you've got so many young guys. You've got Jordan Davis. You've got Jalen Carter. You've got Nolan Smith. You got Kellen Ringo. You've got Sidney Brown. You've got Ricks. You got so many young guys just on that defense alone. You could build a starting NFL defense just with the young guys.
Yeah.
On this defense right now, and it's kind of crazy to see. And I want to talk Jalen Carter, but I bring up these secondary guys. I'm pretty sure you're a pretty big Kelly Ringo fan. I'm sure you're a Sidney Brown fan as well. Talk about these young defensive backs that we got here. Even classify Zach McPherson, because the lack of playing time so far. I mean, he's still a pretty young unknown right there in that secondary.
Yeah, Keely Ringo I had as a projected day 2 guy. I was really high on him. Obviously, he's an athletic freak, 6'2", doesn't have that much wiggle in his hips. The thing about Keely Ringo that I am going to be watching all throughout the preseason is his versatility. There's literally almost zero data when it comes to what he can do as a potential safety, possibly playing in the box. There was a John McMullen report that maybe the Eagles see him as like the heir apparent on the outside. I think that would be a disservice to Keely Ringo given his athletic traits, because I want to see what this guy can bring. His physicality shows across tape every single time. He's a mismatch weapon. He's got safety-like size, safety-like length. I want to see what this guy can do in the box. Be more reactive, like going towards the football. If you think that guy's athletic, wait till you see Sidney Brown, whose athleticism is off the freaking charts. But I think that's what I want to see from Keely Ringo, is possibly throw him into that safety role, maybe even a linebacker role, because you look at Zach McPherson, like that guy, they're trying him out in the slot, and I'm all for it. And I'm all for, seeing what McPherson's got there. But it would be a disservice. Like, it's preseason. Like, this is the time to kind of experiment with these kind of situational guys. So for me, Ringo is definitely one to watch. Sidney Brown.
Ringo and Brown, they're both got a lot of hype from people like you and from the Eagles fans overall. Who's got the higher ceiling you look at our secondary, you got Slay and Bradbury, they're both 30 or older. The safety, region is questionable at this point. Who's got the higher ceiling of the two?
I think it's Sidney Brown. I've been a big fan of his throughout the draft process. If you watch any of my content, I was raving about this guy well before the Eagles drafted him.
Right.
Positional versatility, man. Elite athleticism. A guy that can go sideline to sideline. I don't know how much he's going to play from the jump. I'm hoping we see this guy's snaps get ramped up as the season progresses. But Sidney Brown is a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything really, really well. He played primarily as a box safety at Illinois, but he's strong enough to handle tight ends. He can play in the slot. He can play deep safety. This guy's not Kayvon Wallace. I think Eagles fans are going to love this guy, especially the way this guy plays 200 miles an hour at all times, man. He throws himself around for better or worse. That's a guy that, come preseason, I think it's going to take less than a quarter for people to recognize that guy on tape. This guy pops.
I almost feel like, the easier schedule at the beginning of the season, excuse me. I'm not trying to knock Terrell Edmonds and don't trash talk Kayvon Wallace. He had an interception the other day. There are actually good reports coming out from Kayvon Wallace right now from camp. But I almost feel like you can roll with Sidney Brown and see if he's the real deal right from the get-go, because no offense to Terrell Edmonds. He's a mid safety, he's a guy that's a journeyman veteran, whatever. You almost can just let Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship start developing that chemistry back there right from the get-go. Kyle's saying any worries about Brown's tackling and missed tackles?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the knocks. It's also the big thing about Sidney Brown is he projects to be a great special teams player, which will get him on the field regardless from the jump. So we don't have to worry about that. I'm not sure what Kelee Ringo is going to bring on special teams. So that's why I rate him definitely higher than Ringo. Ringo's definitely a project. It's funny. You look at this time last year, if you looked at my video, I had Kelee Ringo and Eli Ricks in the top 3 cornerbacks of the draft, and they've definitely fallen. And I for when it comes to Kelee Ringo, I feel like we picked on him way too much. What happened was Marvin Harrison Jr. just absolutely blew him up during the college football playoff last year. But the true story of what happened there was Georgia's defensive line was getting beaten up by Ohio State's offensive line and giving CJ Stroud way too much time, giving way too much freedom for Marvin Harrison to kind of get what he wants against Kelee Ringo. And Harrison Jr., who I think is the next Randy Moss. That guy is outstanding. He's the next AJ Green, the next DeAndre Hopkins of the NFL. He's going to be a top 3 pick. And when you give that guy that much time and a quarterback like CJ Stroud that much time, I think it was a little unfair how much Ringo got abused, because that was the topic of discussion, how overrated and things like that Ringo is. I think Ringo is a very solid prospect.
All right. Yeah. I'm just thinking about it. Ringo, Ricks, Sidney Brown, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter. I think you got a starting defense that could still win, even though they're all rookies. You could win 4 or 5 games with all those rookies all starting. That's how much talent and potential is on this defense in the youth. But you also have the veteran guys like Edmonds, Reddick, Fletcher Cox still there. It's the perfect world, because you've got guys that have been there, that have won Super Bowls, that have been in big games, easing these guys along. And it makes Sean Desai's job even easier, to an extent, harder to find playing time, but easier because he's got the best of both worlds, star veterans and rising up and coming youth. If I was Howie Roseman if I was Sean Desai being offered Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni, the defense, I'm like, of course I'm taking this job. Look at all the talent. Why wouldn't I want the defensive coordinator job in Philly?
That's really the only unknown about this Eagles team is the coordinators, right? That's if there was one knock on this Eagles team, it's just the unknown level, the unknown variable when it comes to what we're gonna see from these new coordinators. So it's really exciting. We just went 30 minutes without really deep diving into Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, who could form one of the best interior defensive lines we've seen.
Don't forget Milton Williams' name. Don't knock him. Milton Williams is my guy. Everybody knows I'm high on Milton Williams. And it's a great test. Mista, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, all the youth are the younger guys on our offensive line. You see, especially Jack Driscoll, he's been beat a whole bunch of times by these guys.
Yeah.
It's good practice for them guys. Cam Jurgens playing a position he's never played before.
Mm-hmm.
And guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and these guys coming at him every day in practice. It's a great learning experience in practice for him, isn't it?
Yeah, Cam Jurgens is doing really well. From everything I've read, I'm not there at practice. My boy David saw one practice, but we talked about it on our show, Birds of the Round Table. But he is definitely holding his own against the Jalen Carters and guys like that. I've heard Tyler Steen is definitely struggling, especially with penalties and things like that. I think, we could cement Cam Jurgens into that right guard position. It's also important to note that this isn't the first time Cam Jurgens has changed positions. He was a former tight end, and when he went to Nebraska, he was a tight end. So and he gained all this weight, and now he's gaining more weight. But I'm excited for Cam Jurgens. From everything I've read, though, he looks terrific. And it's not.
Can I ask a question there, though? How do you feel about him doing this? Because, he is the heir apparent. And I know Landon Dickerson was originally the heir apparent. Now he's the best left guard in football. I get all that. But, Jason Kelce's a veteran. He doesn't practice every day. He doesn't practice all year long. He's there for walkthroughs, and that's it. So who gets the 1 reps at center? Normally Cam Jurgens. Well, now he's getting all the reps at guard. So if something happens to Kelce, now he's not as fresh on that center position. Do you know what I mean? If Kelce's done or gets hurt, or God forbid, I know he never gets hurt or misses games, but now Cam Jurgens is not getting those reps. Who's getting those reps? Somebody else. So he has to be prepared for that moment with Jason Kelce, but yet he's focused on right guard. And if he does well at right guard and something happens to Kelce, then you're kind of screwed there. I don't know. I'm just thinking of the what if in that scenario.
I think it's a good problem to have. I think if Kelce goes down, Cam Jurgens rotates to safety without hesitation. I think throughout the preseason, we will see Cam Jurgens at right guard. From everything I've heard as well, Brett Toth has been struggling as second string center. At the end of the day, though, am I concerned? Absolutely not. You know why? Because Lane frickin' Johnson is sitting there at right tackle. Jason Kelce gets help. We'll see Cam Jurgens get some help. Lane Johnson has years of experience playing on an island, holding his own, the most elite tackle, arguably the least best tackle, right up there with Jason Peters, maybe even better. In my experience,
he doesn't get the credit for it whatsoever.
It's incredible. And
I said from the beginning, whoever you put at right guard didn't matter because you had Lane Johnson and you had Kelce. You had the best bookends for anybody. That's kind of why I was always just throw Tyler Steen in there and just let him sink or swim, because then Jurgens is still your backup center, and you don't got to worry about Toth or whoever else is going to fill in that spot. Yeah. That would have been just me. And I originally had said Jack Driscoll, but everything I'm reading is Jack Driscoll's having not so great of a camp so far either, at least in the guard position.
And Tyler Steen's a good prospect too. I don't think he gets enough credit. The dude is an extremely good athlete. He has great anchor, great strength. I think this guy is obviously the short arms, and that's why he's going to guard. But definitely one of the other. There's another offensive lineman, a young offensive lineman that I'm excited to talk about too, that could really thrive under Jeff Stoutland. So for me, Cam Jurgens is the guy, but I think Tyler Steen, with a year under his belt in a Jeff Stoutland system, man, is a guy to watch out for big time because of that athleticism, that pop.
I would be hard pressed to not believe that Jeff Stoutland could get me and you to play on the offensive line. I mean, we would have to put a little weight on. You know what I mean? Just a little bit of muscle weight. But me not as you. I would only have to put a few pounds on. You would have to put a few more on. But I'm pretty confident if Jeff Stoutland coached us for a year or two, somebody would give us a big contract as a free agent just because they'd want that. That's how Andre Dillard got a 3-year deal from Tennessee. He was good, not as good as his draft position, but he had his moments. But Tennessee's like, dude, this guy just learned from Jeff Stout. We're gonna stick him on our left side and be confident there.
Yeah. The other guy is Trevor Reed. Definitely a developmental guy, but 6'5", 300 plus pounds. I think he went to Stanford, but lead athlete, big 9.61 RES score out of 10 during the draft process. Mm-hmm. Very long arms, great athleticism. So that's another project that is really fun when you think about Jeff Stoutland and how he develops these guys. So
has an offensive line coach ever been put in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know, man.
Because I don't know, but he deserves. I mean, just on Jordan Mailata alone, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I can't that's if we were to rank top 10 players and coaches in Philadelphia, Jeff Stoutland would be top 5 for me, easy. Like that's how, because I'm a trenches guy. I always have been.
Oh my.
And like Jeff Stoutland is the Philadelphia Eagles, like Jim Johnson was back in the late 90s. Like that's how important this guy is to the culture of the Philadelphia Eagles, man. I don't know how other teams haven't snagged him up. I don't get it.
I don't think he wants to be like an offensive coordinator or anything like that. So I think he's very content being a position coach. But I would be hard. It wouldn't be unbelievable to say that Howie Roseman has just said whatever offer you get elsewhere, we'll just match it. Like you've got a lifetime contract for whatever you need here to stay in Philadelphia. Like it's very hard to imagine that that's not the case there.
Yeah.
My main concern is losing Kelsey pre-snap calls at center. The center is the quarterback of the offensive line. Exactly. So if something happens to Kelsey, it's still one of my bigger concerns. If something happens to Kelsey, Cam Jurgens has been doing all the work at right guard. I don't want Toth, Opeta, Driscoll, any of these guys, sliding in the center. Dennis, I don't know. Can Dennis Kelly play center? I don't think so. But, there's a big difference between Cam Jurgens stepping into the backup center role, if something happens to anybody else on this team.
Yeah, when you look at like the history of Jason Kelsey and Cam Jurgens, those two are neck and neck, man. I am. If you go back, like I'm fairly certain Jason Kelsey had a hand in drafting Cam Jurgens.
I think he had a hand in drafting Landon Dickerson too at that point too, because they keep getting these guys to replace them.
Yeah, so like there's chemistry there already, and that's why he should be there at right guard. I'm not worried about center. I mean, when's the last time Kelsey missed a game? So
a long time.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That just because it's not like an easy position. Like you get banged up and beat up pretty bad as a center. There's a reason why. What's he? 35 now? 34 now? And he feels like he's like 45 years old, but he's only in his mid 30s. That position does get beat up pretty badly. Real quick, we're gonna take a quick pause here. You got a lot of people watching right now. Make sure we got 10 likes on YouTube right now, 2 on Facebook. Likes equal helping that algorithm. People smash that like button. Trending in the AM on Philadelphia Sports Network. I got Deeb sitting in here next to me. I'm Phil Stiefel. Guys, we're talking about all this youth on this team. And we forget that Jalen Hurts is still youth too. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, he's only 24, 25 years old. But we've got all these young positions. We somehow got back to offense, and we never even talked about Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and what their role is going to be. So let's get back to that. Then we can get to the offense because I do want to talk running backs. I want to talk about quarterbacks too, the backup quarterbacks and stuff a little bit on offense. Back on that defense, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Fletcher Cox. They're your core four in that defensive tackle position. Like I could almost see it being an even 50-50 split across the board with those guys. That would keep Fletcher Cox fresh and healthy for the playoffs, but also gets Jordan Davis on the field, gets Jalen Carter might be the guy that leads the defense in snaps out of those four. Like that's how good Jalen Carter is. How do you see the defensive tackle room shaking up, and how do they keep Jalen? There's no way they can keep Jalen Carter off the field, is there?
We'll see. I mean, so if you were to like during the draft process, like if you were to pick like a handful of guys that had a clear path to getting big playing time on the Eagles, it was like Jalen Carter and like Bijan Robinson. Like at that time. Jalen Carter is a guy that can thrive, be on the football field all 3 downs. He against the run, he can beat guys to spots. Elite level twitch. He can shed blocks like an MFer. He's just a special dude, man. When it comes to pass rush, Jalen Carter has swim moves. He has a bull rush. He already has an arsenal of he already has a pass rush moveset that he can play on, in the pass rush. You're not going to see Jordan Davis do those things. Jordan Davis is not going to play more than 50% of the snaps this year. So anybody expecting Jordan Davis to be out there for extended periods of time, he's not that dude. So I think we need to temper expectations for Jordan Davis. I still expect him to play more than 36% of the snaps.
36, 37% last year.
So like I expect him to get a little more than that. But yeah, like he's definitely still, I like how you said he's still a bit of a rookie this year. Because he definitely, it sucks too, because I thought there was a segment of 2022 when Jordan Davis was getting better and better, and then he got the injuries, and then they brought in Sue and Joseph, and they kind of beat him out there in that starting role in that rotation. But Milton Williams, like you said, is a guy that definitely should be getting significant increases in snaps. So I think it is very much a rotation this year, way more than years past. What Hargrave played, I think 66, 67% of the snaps.
You got to go secure those snaps, you know what I mean? And we know Fletcher Cox, once he hits that 50, 55%, his production declines drastically. So you've got that. I think Jalen Carter, I mean, first off, when you said Jalen Carter and Bijan Robinson's name, I haven't even thought of Bijan since draft. Like, I totally, as soon as he wasn't officially drafted, I totally forgot about him, honestly, for a second there. But Jalen Carter's a guy that, if he didn't have the personal issues, I firmly believe could have been a top 5 pick. Like, maybe top 3 pick even, in a world where there were no quarterbacks going in the top end of a draft. He could have been up there. But yet again, everybody forgets about Milton Williams. And I know he only played like 30% of the snaps last year, but in those 30%, I mean, he was very effective. He gets after the quarterback. I think there was a stat that he was the 4th best run stopper in the NFL along the line based off a percentage of snaps played. I mean, Williams is a legit threat on this defensive line, and he doesn't get any of the respect or credit he deserves.
Yeah, PFF, take it or leave it. Whatever your stance is on PFF is what it is. Data, this data stuff makes people, you can either use it and pump up your narrative.
I always say, you take all that data with a grain of salt and then use your eye test to mix with the data.
100%. But yeah, according to PFF, he had the 4th best percentage of plays with a positive grade versus the run. He ranked number 14 among all interior defenders against the run per Pro Football Focus. And his run defense grade over Fletcher Cox was significantly better. I mean, Williams, we'll see. The sample size is very low, but just yet another dude that should get a significant increase in snaps.
At the beginning of the season, I'd almost want them to just let Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter get more snaps than Fletcher Cox. Not just to preserve Fletcher for the stretch run when you need the experience and the veterans out there, but just, I mean, like I said, I keep going back to the schedule, that it's easier at the start of the season. You know what I mean? And you can let these guys learn to sink or swim early in the year. It's not like New England week 1's going to put up 35 against us. If Mac Jones puts up 35 against any of these guys week 1, we got a problem. You know what I mean? So, you let them learn, you let them get that experience early on. And then that way, when we get to Kansas City, Buffalo, we get to the playoffs, we got the fresh veterans and we got guys with game experience. Missed it back on the offensive line. He played guard on a football team with a clueless center. Yeah, if you have a bad center, I mean, that's the quarterback of the line. I mean, it's one of the most underrated, important positions on a football team. I'd be hard pressed to find many football fans that can name more than 5 or 6 NFL centers. Maybe not even that many. You know what I mean? So, and man, Cheddar, I will crush PFF occasionally. Some of their lists are a little whatever, but you can find useful information with PFF as well.
Yeah, the more data, the better, as always. But I like Phil said, take it for what it's worth. It should never be alone any kind of form any decisions based on data alone. Like that data is just made to help you make decisions. It's just one tool.
All right, let's get back, bringing back up the offensive line. Let's get back to offense here. I think it's fun. I mean, it's not important because Jalen Hurts is our guy. There's no question about it. Knock on wood, Jalen Hurts has another healthy, successful season this year. But Marcus Mariota, there's some questions coming out of him in camp, picking up this playbook. And you got Tanner McKee, McKee. I'm not great with names. I'm terrible. I even wrote it down so I like phonetically so I don't screw it up sometimes. You got Ian Book. Are you concerned at all with Marcus Mariota struggling the first week, picking up a new playbook and picking up a new system? Not at all.
No.
No concerns that if Jalen Hurts goes down for 2 weeks with the early struggles of Marcus Mariota?
No, zero. Defense is always ahead of offense at this time of year. It's only been a week and a half now. But, no, they started Wednesday, so it's been a week. So it's zero concern. Marcus Mariota will be fine. I'm interested to see what this guy Tanner McKee can bring. He's no Carson Strong, who was an absolute bum. But McKee, 6'6", 231 pounds, gets the ball out fast. I don't think what it's talking about, not Carson Strong. He's not as big of a liability on the ground. He doesn't move well, but like he can definitely move a little bit better. But Tanner McKee is definitely going to get an opportunity. In book, I'm not even thinking twice.
I bring it up because I'm looking more down the line. Obviously, I'm not as concerned about Mariota as I led on. Like, I'm just goofing around with that. I do still firmly believe I would have rather keep Gardner Minshew over Marcus Mariota. Not because of Minshew mania, just because he knew the system, he knew the playbook. I think he's a better backup quarterback than people give him credit for, and he'll sink as a starter if he gets starting playing time in Indy. But as a backup, I think he's a really good guy to have there. And Marcus Mariota's skill set might match Jalen Hurts a little bit more, like if something happens. But the intangibles, the leadership, the drive, like what Jalen Hurts is not as a quarterback. Hello.
Yeah, my bad.
What Jalen Hurts is off the field is more like Gardner Minshew, like the leadership, the fire, the passion, and I do like that. But Marcus Mariota's here on a 1-year deal. Tanner McKee, I think he needs to be the number 3 quarterback because Ian Book, he's nothing. And I almost think you can spend this preseason and this season grooming Tanner McKee to be that number 2 guy in the future. And I don't know if he makes it to the practice squad or not. Someone else might see him in preseason and want to scoop him up. So I kind of feel like I'm kind of excited to see what he's got in the preseason games.
Yeah, me too. He's going to get an opportunity. Like Ian Book is a guy that, definitely has some connectivity there with the Philadelphia Eagles. His former offensive coordinator at Notre Dame was Tommy Rees, who is, we know, very close to Nick Sirianni. He's now the offensive coordinator at Alabama. We know how much the Eagles love to pluck guys offensively from Alabama. Maybe there was a handshake agreement. I don't know. Who knows about these things? Maybe just get an opportunity. But yeah, Tanner McKee, it probably is your number 3. And let's just hope he's better than Carson Strong, because that guy was a disaster. I mean, we've seen a lot of disasters at backup quarterback here in recent years, man.
Didn't they pay Carson Strong the most out of any undrafted free agent last year? Like, he was the highest pay, and then they just cut him without.
They're like, I think they saw 3 practices and were like, nope.
You got nothing. All right, you brought up earlier the running back. It's a common conversation almost every day on this show, how it's shaking out in practice, how we feel it's going to play out. Obviously, we got 5 running backs all getting snaps with the 1s, 2s, 3s. I mean, I still talk about all the time. How do you replace Miles Sanders, 11 touchdowns and 1,300 yards of production? You've got 5 guys that need to do that. A lot of talk about a rotation, but I kind of feel as this preseason goes on, we're going to see that it's really going to be DeAndre Swift is not the lead back, but the lead-ish back, where he's getting a majority or a higher percentage of snaps than anybody else.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be less. Like, Miles Sanders dominated the rock in 2022, but it's going to be a tick below that. What I'm excited about DeAndre Swift, what doesn't get talked about enough, is his ability as a receiver in the backfield. It's going to be really fun to see that guy. We've already heard about it at training camp. Nick Sirianni didn't really utilize that in his offense. That role went to Kenny Gainwell in 2022. I think Swift is a notch above that. And Swift is actually also a very good pass blocker. So his ability to pick up blitzes and things like that instantly makes him a huge upgrade over Miles Sanders. No knock on Miles. I'm not a Miles Sanders.
People think I'm this huge Miles Sanders fan. I just see 11 touchdowns and 1,300 yards have to be replaced. And if you give, there are people out there that think it'll be 14 snaps for DeAndre Swift, 15 snaps for Kenny Gainwell, 14 snaps for Rashad Penny, 14 snaps. It's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift is going to be the lead of this group. It's just going to be a little bit more balanced than last year. But I think the talent set of DeAndre Swift is being underappreciated. I mean, as long as he stays healthy, he can put up 1,300 yards, all-purpose yards. He can score 10 touchdowns out of the backfield And I don't think people are giving him credit for how talented of a running back he really is.
Well, what gets really exciting about Swift and Penny combined is those two were among the league leaders in yards after contact.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of the yards for Miles Sanders
Mm-hmm.
last year was yards before contact. He was not among the tops in that. When you project Swift and Penny and Kenny Gainwell, of course, guys that can get yards after contact with this offensive line, this elite offensive lineman. And considering how efficient they were as a rushing offense last year, it's crazy, man. Again, like you said, it's all health. It all comes back to, can these guys stay on the football field? Swift is the guy. There's no question.
Exactly. And so, last year they only kept 3 running backs, I believe, coming out of camp. It was Scott, Gainwell, and Sanders, and that was it coming out of camp. Do they keep 4? Is there a way they keep 5? You got 5 guys that could get playing time, and I still, to this day, I still think Penny's the odd man out based off of his contract and how easy it is to just walk away from him. But Sermon also hasn't, I'm a big Trey Sermon fan because I'm not a big Trey Sermon fan. I believe the hype that the coaches are putting on him. It's not like they're just hyping him up for whatever. They really do have some confidence in him.
Yeah.
I don't see how they keep 4 even, because it's just not the Eagles culture we talk about. They keep 3 running backs coming out of camp. They put 1 on the practice squad. That's just what they do. Who's going to be at least the odd man out in this group?
Probably Boston Scott, unfortunately.
A lot of people are going to cry about that, but I think it has to be that way. Yeah,
it's probably going to be Boston Scott. I don't think Trey Sermon is on there. Kennedy Brooks, nah. I think Swift, Gainwell, absolute locks. And then Penny's the guy that's not on the bubble by any means, but definitely a guy that is kind of on the outside looking in. Just needs to stay healthy, of course. But those are the 3 guys we will definitely roll with. What's up, Mitch?
Mitch, always good to check in. Again, make sure you like the video. Nobody's liked the video since the last time I shot. We got plenty of people watching. Likes help the algorithm, guys. Pound that like button. We talk about this running back group, and I kind of I've had concerns all offseason and still at this point with our wide receiver group outside of obviously Smith and with tight end behind Dallas Goedert. I know everybody loves Tyree Jackson, and Dan Arnold was brought in and stuff. As I watch camp and read the updates and watch the videos with how Swift catches the ball in the backfield, the increased role that Kenneth Gainwell is going to get, maybe the backup center or the slot receiver, the 4th receiver, the 3rd tight end, maybe they're not as important as I think they are, because you're going to utilize your running backs a little bit more. Do you think there's any thought process there?
Yeah, that's a really good comment. As dominant as the Eagles were offensively last year, a lot of that success came in 11 personnel. The Eagles were actually not a good 12 personnel team. And when you think of how much they run 2 tight ends, I was literally about to bring that guy up. It's really interesting, too, because that's a position battle that's really interesting. Grant Calcaterra, Dan Arnold. I'm not a Grant Calcaterra guy. I don't necessarily know how much this guy deserves a lock for the roster. Dan Arnold, 6'6", huge red zone threat, yard after the catch guy, can be kind of a safety blanket for Jalen Hurts. I think Dan Arnold is definitely a guy that could give this team a little more weapons in those 12 personnel sets. So I think the comment's good because I definitely think they want to do more of that in 2023.
Yeah, I just look, Quez Watkins, he's having a great camp. I know it. I love this quote. He says he's elite. He knows it. He's one of the guys. There's a lot of guys that there is next year for them. Quez Watkins is on the last year of his rookie deal. He's got to prove it. And you got OZ playing the Zach Pascal 4th wide receiver role. Britton Covey, your punt returner. You're only carrying 5 wide receivers out of camp. And if something, God forbid, happened to A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, you really don't have a quality guy that could step in.
Yeah.
But you're using Swift the way we think. And I see what Mista's saying here, in a Deebo Samuel McCafferty type role, where he's doing everything. I mean, we're hearing reports that Swift is running wide receiver routes in camp. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they think. You might see a DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Gainwell backfield at the same time on play, or one's running the wide. The usage of these running backs can really alleviate some of the pain of what's behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. It was very top-heavy, this offense last year. There were 4 guys. The 2 wide receivers, tight end, and Miles Sanders got all the touches last year. There was nothing else.
Yeah, you said it. The Eagles haven't had a guy that can impact a running back that can impact the receiving game like a DeAndre Swift in a while. You're talking about like Miles Sanders' rookie year definitely was pretty good as a receiving threat. Brian Westbrook, Deuce Staley had a couple seasons.
Shady McCoy maybe a little bit.
Shady McCoy was pretty dominant.
Eagles fans say they're hoping for a Shady McCoy type season from DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, then that kind of leads us. I'm not the biggest Quez guy. I'm all for this dude. He's not going to be with the Eagles after this year. The Eagles have a contract issue with Devontae Smith that's looming. So Quez is going to get more money elsewhere, 100%. And then we'll probably address that slot receiver position in next year's draft for sure. Deion Kane versus Britton Covey. That's a fun battle. I'm not a big Covey guy as well, but you look at his numbers after like week 6 and through the playoffs, he was one of the top returners in the NFL. Deion Kane had a great camp last year. I remember raving about that guy. There's always the guys that we fall in love with, right?
Turner syndrome, you know?
Deion Kane was one of them, man. He had a couple great games during the preseason. At the USFL, he was returning kicks, and no one could stop him. So maybe
don't bring up the USFL. Mad Chatter will just talk about the USFL all day long. I even watched 5 minutes of USFL just to appease him this year. But look, first off, Britton Covey, I agree with you. He got much better as the season went on last year.
Oh, that Super Bowl return was
I know you're a movie buff, so all I think of with Brittany Covey is not another teen movie when Captain America throws the pass and that kid gets the ball and he gets ripped in half. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, that is all I think about whenever I see Covey catch a punt return.
Or like in The Water Boy when I think it was like Michigan experiments with the Water Boy and put him and they throw him like on a quick slant and he just gets completely destroyed.
I just don't get it. We're gonna get to some of these comments here in a second here, but yeah, the running backs don't get paid. We're relying on these running backs. Look, we spent like $7 million on 5 running backs, yet Miles Sanders got like 8. So look, the whole running back situation, I'd love to get your thoughts for a minute or so on it, how this is playing out. What has to happen for the running backs to get the respect financially that I think they kind of deserve?
Man.
Not gonna happen.
It's not going to happen. I mean, that's the step ahead of Howie Roseman. That's the Howie Roseman playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. Like, he does not value those positions: running back, safety, linebacker. Those are the 3. And look at it across the NFL. I mean, you can't deny it. It's the only way you bet on a running back is if your window is like somewhat closing, because what you're looking to do is get that rookie contract and get as much out of it as possible, which could happen in like a year or 2. But the whole nonsense of drafting Bijan and all these guys like with top 10 picks, and that's nonsense. I am not a fan of that. I never have been. And it just kills you because when that next contract comes up, you're screwed. So that's spot on. Now the linebacker position is different because I'm biased. I'm always a linebacker guy, and I'm hoping the Eagles bring in Jeremiah Trotter Jr. with their first pick next year's draft, and I want to buy that Kelly Green Trotter Jr. jersey. That's the one I'm waiting for. But
the towel boy.
But for me, he's spot on. It's just look at maybe in like 5 years that flips. It does a 180, but given the market where it's at today, Howie Roseman is 1,000% correct.
Real quick, I only got a few more minutes with your time there, Deebs, but Shane Steichen believed in establishing the run as the offensive coordinator. Will the Eagles pass more with Brian Johnson? I think it's a great question, and it's something that maybe we can, we'll use to transition towards the end of the show today, and then this might be one of the main topics to start tomorrow's show off. I think it's a great question. What do you think about how the offense is going to look under Brian Johnson this year?
Yeah, I don't expect a lot to change. I still expect the Eagles' bread and butter to be those RPOs, to put Jalen Hurts in those positions to succeed. That's what Jalen Hurts does so well at, making defenses guess incorrect, and taking advantage of that. Mm-hmm. And that's where the Rashad Pennies and the DeAndre Swift and their ability to impact as a receiver and pass block gets so exciting. I think we're going to see a lot more wheel routes. I think I would like to see Nick Sirianni get more creative, but at the end of the day, I don't think we're going to see that much difference. I still think the Eagles, want to be a rushing attack offense. I still expect them to be an offense that, hits the throttle and wants to put teams away in the first half. I still think, and going back to that comment though, like we haven't had a DeAndre Swift in quite some time. Miles Sanders couldn't catch a beach ball. Right. So for me, I would definitely love to see the Eagles offense get a little more creative with DeAndre Swift in those wheel routes and more checkdowns and things like that. And Kenny Gainwell, we don't talk about him enough too, because if I had to make a prediction, I think the Eagles are going to utilize more Kenny G than we think, because I think the key to the Eagles' success this year is slowly ramping up Swift, slowly ramping up Penny, keeping those guys fresh. Just like we said on the defensive line and at running back, same thing goes. I want to see them kind of depending on the week, depending on the matchup, get this guy some more touches than the other guys. Keep these guys fresh as much as possible.
I think almost like you say it's not going to change much from Steichen to Johnson, and I agree with you. I think the bigger question really needs to be in the beginning of the season. I know Nick Sirianni has confidence in everybody. He's Mr. Positivity. He would never show any doubt. But when game one happens and it's 3rd and long, or it's 4th and 4 from the 38, as he as aggressive and says, we're going for it, call a play. Like, how much confidence and how much leeway does Nick Sirianni give Brian Johnson and even Sean Desai to an extent early in the season? Like, sometimes it takes some time to have the confidence in your play caller to make certain type of aggressive decisions. And I kind of leaning towards that being the bigger question than what the usage of the offense is going to be like.
Yeah. And, when you talk about Jalen Hurts and like areas to improve, there's not a lot, it's very limited. Like, you want to see more higher percentage completions. You want to see him stay safe late in plays when throwing, things like that. But there's definitely like an area to grow, and that's 3rd down. His passer rating was only 93 on 3rd down. 93. Only 93, which is a huge improvement from the previous year. And that, again, we are nitpicking so much here. But a Swift on a 3rd down could definitely, pump up Jalen Hurts in this area. And that's kind of where Brian Johnson comes in to kind of help with that. So we'll see. I don't know. Like, I'm not Jalen Hurts was so sensational last year that it's hard to really kind of nitpick his play. But 62% on 3rd downs, less than Joe Burrow, less than Tua, less than Geno. Maybe you want to see the Eagles become dominant on 3rd downs again. They were So anyway, that's my quick take. I'm talking about those like 3rd and longs. So.
Yeah. I like it. I'm writing that down because I think it's an interesting topic. We always talk like Jalen Hurts walks on water. You know what I mean? Like, I made the joke the other day. He doesn't even have to tie his own shoes. He just looks at his shoes and they just magically tie. That's how great Jalen Hurts is. But to think of how great Jalen Hurts was last year, there is still room for improvement, which I think is fantastic. You have to be able to admit where those flaws are, and just imagine if he fixed that, how much better he could be. Go ahead.
I want to see Devontae Smith. I mean, we saw when you look at Devontae Smith's rookie year to last year, like his snaps in the slot went up and up. as well. I want to see more of that too, and I want to see more chemistry between Devontae and Hurts, because there were definitely moments last year where it wasn't great. Devontae Smith led the Eagles with 18 third down receptions last year. That was 7 receptions less than the number 1 guy. I want to see Devontae be like that Jason Avant. I want to see Devontae be like that elite third down guy that they can go to every time. And maybe that's Dallas Goedert's role. Who knows in 2023? But Devontae, I expect him to continue to climb that ladder.
I like it. All right, so I got to get you out of here. I know you said you had a 9:30 meeting. So what do you got going on? Obviously, Edge of Philly, party on Broad. You guys doing all your stuff there. You're now part of Bleeding Green. I don't know if you've got a start date there when your first video with them comes out. What's happening in the world of DEIBS?
Oh my gosh. So I have multiple shows. So I have Party on Broad, which is Wednesdays. And then that's all Sixers and Eagles. That's all, and NFL draft. It will be the NBA draft, and it will be the NHL draft starting next week. So I do like 3 to 4 shows a week. If you love the NFL draft, I've covered every single position in the 2024 NFL draft already. Top 10s. We've done top 10s in every single Power 5 conference. Right now I'm working on my, firm top 50 in this draft. I've done 3 series of my favorite under the radar prospects. So NFL draft all the time. Bleeding Green Nation. I covered the draft with them last year. But the difference is this year we'll be doing shows every week throughout college football season. Okay. So that will be mostly Eagles targets, talking about, the top matchups to watch. I'll also be doing a weekly show on the college football season for Party on Broad, where that'll be more of a general take on the NFL draft. Top matchups to watch, NFL draft prospect focus. Not necessarily the games, but more so like the best edge rusher versus this offensive tackle, and ranking those matchups. So that'll be really fun.
Dude, you guys know way too much about these prospects. Man, I can barely keep track of just the Philly, Sixers, and Eagles on this show. You guys got all these colleges from all these stuff. I don't know. My head's not big enough to keep all this information in it.
We're well over 100 prospects covered already. Yeah, it's insane. I love it though. That's my passion. That's like when you guys are watching the Phillies, I'm watching NFL draft stuff. So
when I'm bitching about the Phillies, you guys are watching. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's another terrible outing. Yesterday was such a bad day for Philly sports. I know you got to go, but you had Montrezl Harrell tear his ACL. The Phillies blew.
How are they going to recover, Phil? How are the Sixers going
to recover? My man. Well, we got to wrap it up, get you out of here. Thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure, as always. Enjoy the rest of your day, my man.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right, that was my man, Mr. Crockpot. DEIBS himself, Edge of Philly, Bleeding Green Nation. Guys, we got 13 likes on YouTube. We got 3 on Facebook. Got to make sure you like it. We're rolling up to the final 7 minutes of this show. Lots of fun stuff. I'm going to see if I missed any of these comments here from before. Crash Test Covey. I love it. And this is something interesting here. At least Covey doesn't fumble. We need more production from our returners, really the entire special teams. People forget how bad the special teams was last year. Covey got better as a punt returner as the season went on, Marshawn. But, DEIBS just said it. He thinks Boston Scott's the odd man out in the running back room. Boston Scott's our most consistent punt or kick returner. So if Boston Scott's not on this team, who's returning kicks for us? I think it'll be interesting. I mean, special teams our kick return hasn't gone away yet. And yes, Waterboy references are great. I don't know if anybody was watching the Phillies game last night. I know, I got a lot of crushed for crushing Michael Lorenzen the trade, but Michael Lorenzen was in the dugout for his first time in Philly yesterday, the new Phillies pitcher, and he dropped the Ricky Bobby reference without even I guess there was a camera and mic malfunction or something happened, and Michael Lorenzen's like, well, I didn't know what to do with my hands, and he just dropped it in there very subtly. And I'm like, I love this guy. Anybody that's on a baseball broadcast and just gonna randomly his introduction to Philadelphia is dropping a Ricky Bobby reference. I love it. Fantastic. And Mister, I love this comment still. I put it back up again just so you know. And I think this is going to be one of the main topics for tomorrow. What this offense will look like with Brian Johnson at the helm. I think it's very interesting. I think it's a very fair question. Jalen Hurts being better on third down. Do they have more options on the table? I think that's all very important. Yes, we do all love DEIBS. I mean, the amount of work all I do is wake up and listen to what you guys want to talk about, except for when I say the Phillies. You know, I just talk. I don't have to do a lot of research. I take notes throughout the day if I see something on Twitter. But man, the work that he does, that Shane Haft does, and a lot of these guys do covering the draft, it's insane. It really is insane, the amount of effort and the amount of knowledge they have on these college kids. It's for football and basketball alike. It's insane. Phillies just hoping they can take this last game, get a full game ahead of these guys. I mean, last night was, dude, I won't lie, Freddie. I'm like, I think it was when we lost the lead in the 10th inning. I gave up. I turned it off. Like I just knew that it was a bad feeling. You know, we've got all this positivity with the Eagles as we get into camp. But I was thinking, I'm like, I got a poll question I got to put out there. Who's more disappointing? Even though the Phillies are still going to make the playoffs and the Sixers made the playoffs, was the Sixers season more disappointing than this current Phillies season? I mean, it's insane. Yeah, we love to respect the Kelly Green. Not really. Not really. Although I was looking online at some knockoff Kelly Greens yesterday, just for the fun of it. I was. DH Gate, you know, that Goddard's a DH Gate, you know. DH Gate's fine. $27. I was looking at a Dawkins and a Dawkins, a Cunningham, and a Hertz, you know, Kelly Green. It would have cost me like $100, versus 170 for one at the stadium on the other day. But anyway, I think there's been a lot of good conversation today, a lot of good points today, a lot of good thoughts. Yeah, Kyle, last night. I mean, where I passed out before the end of the game. Did Rob Thompson comment at all on why Craig Kimbrell wasn't used in the 9th inning? I mean, I would love to know. And something else happened in that game when Kimbrell was in the 10th inning. Him tipping his pitches, and he purposely balked to get the guy off the second and the third. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. Like, it would be almost like a comparable thing in football would be like the Eagles have, you know, third and 3, but they can't move the ball against the opposing defense's third and short defense. So they purposely false start to get it to 3rd and 8, so they have more room to run the play that they like better to get get a different defense on the field. Like, it's insane that a pitcher purposely made a mistake just to advance a runner to third base. Like, I've never seen that before. Never seen that in the history of baseball before. And then, of course, you had the Montrezl Harrell news yesterday. You know, the Sixers bring back Harrell, and he goes and tears his ACL working on getting ready for the season. You know, the disappointments in Philly right now, in Philly sports, are a lot. But yet, we still got the Eagles, a saving grace. And it makes the disappointments of the Eagles and the Phillies and the Sixers so much easier to handle. I got other questions here for tomorrow. So we got the Brian Johnson thing down here. I'm just dabbling in some of the ideas here, just so you guys know. My man posted something the other day on Twitter, you know, for his fantasy draft, CeeDee Lamb or A.J. Brown. Who would you rather take with your first, well, you know, ahead of the other? I think it's an interesting conversation on, you know, these Cowboys and the Cowboys. I mean, Cowboys fans are delusional, man. You know, I saw one Cowboys fan sharing pictures of Jalen Hurts, you know, doing like running drills. It was basically protecting the ball drills. They're saying, oh, here's your $260 million running back. Guys, Cowboys fans, you know, stop being jealous. Just don't. It is Football Friday tomorrow. But we're going to talk all different things. I mean, now that football season's back, it doesn't have to be called Football Friday. It's whatever we want to talk about Friday. It's dropped the $500 Super Chat Friday. You know, made, you know, $30 in Super Chats last month. We got to beat that in August. But I think CeeDee Lamb versus A.J. Brown, I think there's a conversation there. Because of CeeDee Lamb now having Brandon Cooks opposite of him, but Dak being a barely a top 10 quarterback, and A.J. Brown with Devontae Smith opposite of him, and where the ball gets shared is A.J. Brown. I mean, A.J. Brown is going to be an effective wide receiver and a great wide receiver still, but A.J. Brown also is going to get less touches this year, especially if Dallas Goedert stays healthy. If DeAndre Swift is catching the ball in the backfield, there's only so many plays a game for touches. Where does A.J. Brown fall on that pecking order? Like, how much does he drop off this year? I think there's an interesting conversation to be had there. CeeDee Lamb versus A.J. Brown in a fantasy football aspect. Who you like. And I think maybe next week I'll start bringing in, you know, it's time to start doing fantasy football drafts. I'll talk to my man, Swag Man, see if I can get him on a show next week, and we could do a whole morning show just talking fantasy football and just talking about where guys rank on his chart, who should be ahead of who, where we should go as we get set for drafts here. I wanted to do that a few times and maybe also do some betting shows as well leading up to the season. So we got lots. We're hitting the max time right here. Again, 14 likes, 3 legs. Guys, come on. Let's go. Likes up. The likes equal more shows. I'm not doing overtime with 14 likes, guys. I'm not. Can't do overtime on 14 likes. Hashtag suspend Kamara. And that's another whole subject right there. Try to stay off of the sensitive and serious subjects. I don't like getting serious on this show. I try to keep it as low key and simple and fun as possible. But anyway, we're gonna wrap it up. Trending in the AM, right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. Like, subscribe, etc., etc. I just hope there's no letdown with this team. It's been grim between basketball and baseball. It has been. But see, again, that's a perfect comment to end the show on, Marshawn, because there's an Eagles culture, and that's the topic of the show. Eagles culture, and the Eagles culture will not let there be a letdown. There won't be. There won't be. There's no chance of a letdown. You got to gear up. Fantasy. My team this year is named L.A. Knights. Yeah, L.A. Knight. Yeah. See, I don't always have to do $1 million man impersonation. I still say Eli Drake. I still go that way personally. The Sixers are more disappointing than the Phillies. Have the better future four now. Yeah, I mean the Sixers are more disappointing for sure. Because the Phillies still somehow are keeping people hooked that there still might be a chance. I don't know what he did. I just want him out. Yeah, exactly. All right, and 15 likes. Yeah, we did get up to 15 likes, but it's still not enough for overtime. Got to wrap it up. Last morning of camp that I'm feeding basketball kids. Let's not make the Eagles culture annoying like Heat culture. No. Eagles culture is much better than Heat culture, for sure. And the Sixers can't draft. Well, the Sixers, they drafted Tyrese Maxey, so they got something there. All right, we're wrapping up. See, I gave you guys 2 minutes of overtime. I got you 2 minutes of overtime for 15 likes. All right, guys. Back tomorrow, 8:15 a.m. Philadelphia Sports Network. I am Phil Stiefel. Like, share, subscribe, tell a friend. Yo, get those views up. Let's go, guys. Have a great Thursday. See you guys tomorrow.